Hello, I'm Joanne Nealon, Councilwoman and Chairperson of the Public Safety Committee here on Town Council, and I'm here today with Detective Parada and Sergeant McCurlin, and we're going to be discussing pedestrian safety because it seems to me that there are two issues that are really hot topics right now. Crosswalk safety with the enactment of a new law in New Jersey, and we're going to also talk about cell phone usage because these two topics are really, we're trying to educate the public so that we have safer streets and that everyone who's walking around Westfield, and we do have a great town to walk and enjoy, is safe, and we're all aware of how these laws, new laws, and how the cell phone usage, which is so prevalent and which is a violation to use your cell phone. A little bit more information about that, how we can make our streets a little safer. And I'd like to first start with you, Detective Parada, because you're a veteran, and Sergeant McCurlin is a new guy on the streets. So can you give us a little bit about your background, Detective?
Well, I've been with Westfield for about 22 years. I actually started out as writing tickets downtown.
Were you about 10?
Yeah. And then I got promoted to dispatcher, and I became a police officer. And then I'm in the traffic bureau for almost 6 years, and I love it. And with my new sergeant here, and we just actually finished up a great program at the schools. We went to every elementary school, and we did a bike rodeo, and really trying to push the helmet law on the kids and explain to them how important it is to wear your helmets. And we have a positive program going on right now through Children's Specialized Hospital. And when we see kids with their helmets, we give them a summons for wearing their helmets, and they can go to Rita's for an Italian ice, or they can go to Bavella's for a cupcake, and it's working really well. And the children that can't afford a helmet or do not have one, we have helmets from the Children's Specialized Hospital. They gave us helmets that we can give out to the kids.
So that you touched on a couple of important things I want to discuss. Number one, you mentioned that you went to all the schools in the town.
Yes.
So you're a face that the parents should know, the children should know, students should recognize. I know I pick up my daughter at Roosevelt. I always see you riding around, cruising, making sure everything's in order. So parents should really feel comfortable to stop and say, Detective, Sergeant, I have an issue, I have a question. Can they do this? Is this okay? And so you want to be visible, and that's another reason we're doing this. So people who are watching this can see, oh yeah, I didn't realize this is the detective and this is the sergeant that we see around the school. So you are the face, the connection from the Westfield Police Station to our schools. You are the contact people. And this bike rodeo, so we're trying to encourage children to ride their bikes, but to do it in a proper and safe manner. So the first thing is the helmet usage, which it's kind of like a positive reinforcement. So you get a summons, you get recognized for doing the right thing. So that's terrific. And we do, if I'm a parent and I have so many kids, I don't have enough helmets, I can come to the police. How do I get my hands on a helmet?
Just call me up. I have several helmets in my back storage room, and just call me up and explain to me that you need a helmet.
Okay.
No questions asked. I will give you a helmet.
Okay. Now, Sergeant, you just came on board. Give us a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
I've been with Westfield Police for 10 years.
Okay.
During the course, I've mainly remained in patrol. Recently, as of 2 years ago, I was assigned as a field training officer, and then this past January I was promoted to sergeant, and then recently in April I was assigned with Detective Parada and also more into the traffic bureau.
Okay, so you're following Detective Parada's lead, because I know she's a pro at this, and it's really nice to see friendly faces, because you also have a special little bit of personality to deal with the parents and the students, because it's a hectic time, when school's letting out and people get sometimes testy. How do you deal with when trying to enforce for our own safety and people may want to just do what's expedient? How do you handle the situation, Detective or Sergeant?
The main thing is just explaining to them what the expectations are and what their responsibilities are. I mean, in an ideal world, everyone gets exactly what they want. However, our concern is the safety of the motorists and pedestrians, particularly around the schools.
Okay. And you said that it's what expectations are. I think there's a little bit of confusion these days with the expectation regarding crosswalk. We have a new bill that just became a law. Assemblyman Bramnick pushed this through, so I want to thank him for all the hard work to making sure our streets are even safer for pedestrians. And this is a great time to clarify. Can you give us a little bit about exactly what the law states and how it affects a pedestrian? We'll start with you, Detective.
Well, it's really basically the same way it was before. You know, when you're in the crosswalk, you're trying to cross the street. The pedestrians really should make sure there's enough time for the vehicles to stop. And I think that's where the confusion is. People think they could just jump out into the crosswalk and everybody's just going to lock up their brakes. And it doesn't work that way. You know, I know our downtown area, there's a lot of vehicles and a lot of people, and it gets crazy. But you have to give the vehicles enough time to stop. That's rule number one as a pedestrian.
Do you hear that? You have to give the motorist enough time to stop. So you still have a responsibility. The law is on your side, but you have to exercise common sense.
Exactly. And that's what I'm noticing. People think they could just walk out into the street and not make sure it's safe and the vehicles are not stopped. And that's our problem. And then they get all upset that the cars are not stopping. But we explain to them, you have to make sure you give that gap.
Okay, time to stop. But a
Time to
car, on the other hand, the automobile, should be traveling at a speed that allows them to
Exactly.
stop in sufficient time if there's,
Yeah.
let's say, 5 or 7 feet or some distance between the crosswalk and the pedestrian who's now entering the crosswalk, right? They
correct.
need to be going slow enough. So automobile drivers need to know that pedestrians really have, well, no one wants to hit anyone, obviously, but have a right to be there.
Right.
You shouldn't obviously play a game of chicken where somebody jumps into the road. No one's, advocating that. But would you say it's fair to say it's raising awareness for both the driver and the pedestrian to really proceed in a cautious manner?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And then when the pedestrians are in the crosswalk, the vehicles should come to a stop. It's not a yield, it's not a roll, it's not a slow drive.
It's a stop.
You
It's
have
a
to
stop.
It's like a stop sign.
Now,
You know,
have you been enforcing this? How has your enforcement mentality or culture changed?
Yes, several times last year, the sergeant and I and a couple other patrolmen from our police department, we were actually on North Avenue in front of Lord and Taylor, and what was the total? I don't know how many stops we actually did.
We've roughly written 42 tickets in the last 10 days or so.
Okay.
And that's basically really from 4 or 5 days of strong enforcement. And most of the summonses are for either failure to stop for the pedestrian as well as cell phone uses in those same areas, plus then numerous other violations, whether it be inspection or unregistered.
So what I'm sensing, and I really want to talk about cell phone usage in a few moments, is that people are a little too relaxed and sloppy. We have more distractions these days. Now that the weather is getting nicer, there are a lot of people out, droves of kids, young teenagers who love to enjoy the downtown, and as they should, but safely. And we're trying to educate, and that's what this whole segment is about, education, so that people say, gee, let me just take that extra few seconds to think about how I'm proceeding through town in my SUV or whatever kind of car you have. But we have a lot of big cars, and does that even lend itself to a little less safety, let's say, because of the size of the vehicle? So we're trying to change culture, and I'm sure people are not happy about this, but if you think about it, the reason is really for safety, for our own. Okay, so let's talk a little too about the walking school buses, which is, can you give us a background? Who would like to talk about that?
Yeah, that started with the Breaks group, formed that together, which is pretty interesting. They have volunteers, mothers or fathers that walk their children to school, and as they get closer to the school, more kids are walking with them, so the
Right.
group gets bigger and bigger, and it eliminates vehicles around the school, which helps, with the traffic.
Absolutely.
And I think the kids like it.
Yeah.
They like the attention. Each of them have a vest and they have a stop sign, and and it gets popular, and I noticed through the years the groups are
catching
getting
on.
larger and larger, and it helps us because with our crossing guards out there, with the traffic, with the people, and like